everyone, it's Holly and I'm here with my book review of Grave Mercy by Robin LaFevers, and this is the first book in the His Dark Assassin trilogy. And I actually don't have the book to show you because it was a library book and I had to return it, but still thought I would do this review anyways. And this book, so first I'll tell you a little bit about what it is. It is a historical fiction story with some magical realism / supernatural or spiritual elements going on in it. And it follows a main character known as Ismay, and or at least it's how I say her name. It's like I-S-M-A something like that. M-A-E, I think. She has grown up being told that she is the daughter of death and that there's something wrong with her, and people say that, and she ends up escaping this horrible family situation and ends up at a convent where she finds out that she is in fact the daughter of death, like an old god, and she is trained by the nuns at this convent to become an assassin for death. So it's her job to kill the people that death marks for death, because redundancy. And she ends up having to infiltrate the like a royal court, because there's also a lot of political intrigue going on right now, because it takes place in like the French region, but it's before France is like a unified country. There's still like little duchies, I guess, kind of. I don't know a lot about French history, so I'm kind of just winging it here. And she ends up kind of starting to fall for a guy, and then things get more complicated and everything. So I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. It is definitely a hunker of a book, but I just flew through it. It was super engaging. I think a huge part of that is the writing. It's easy to get into. It's informative. There's like some mystery, political, intriguey elements that are kind of hook you. And it is told in the first person, from Ismay's POV, and the writing is a little distant, especially for first person for me, but it kind of feels like what I view fantasy novels as, where they seem a little like most fantasy books I read. I feel like I'm a little separated from the characters, so that's kind of what I compare it to. But overall, I liked the writing a lot. I thought it was enjoyable, it was well written, and I liked Ismay as a narrator. She is definitely an enjoyable character. She's very strong, like physically, mentally, and I liked viewing her struggles, especially like her personal internal struggles. She has to deal with moral dilemmas, and she has to deal with, she's never had like a lot of affection in her life, from her family growing up, and from even a lot of times at the convent. So whenever she gets physical affection, she doesn't like know how to react, and I found that very enjoyable to like read about that journey and that struggle. Even though she is very smart, I do wish sometimes she thought a little bit more before she did things. She was very much like a act first and then like ask questions later kind of a person, and made some pretty stupid decisions a couple times. But it wasn't that big of a fault, and everybody's gotta have flaws, so it's okay. And then there's Duval, and he's like the main love interest. I really liked him. He was a really good guy. I've been reading a lot of books lately with just like good guys in them, and I like that. You know, you don't need a bad boy to have a good story and to have a good romance. But I do wish I could have gotten in his head, and it's a huge complaint of mine with first person, because I always want to know more about the other character in like a romance story. So the plotty things, there was the politics part. I'm guessing that across the trilogy, because it's going to be about, each one is about a different girl from the convent, that this is what is going to ultimately connect all of the stories. And so the politics part wasn't completely resolved, which is fine, but I could have used a little bit more explanation of who the characters were and how they played in this world. I just don't know enough about French history to have come into this with that knowledge. I needed more background and more information. I would get confused about who people were and what their loyalties were and why, and I would get confused sometimes. But I do like political intrigue stories. I've said that before. It does have like a little bit of a flavor of Rain, so if you like that, I think you would have an interest in this. The romance, it was nice. It was well paced. I didn't find it overpowering, but it added like a nice depth to the story, especially because of Ismay, like how she grew up. A romance actually created like an internal conflict for her instead of it just being like a love story. Personally, I could have used a little bit more, but I'm definitely team romance, so I can't really fault the book for that. I also like that there was a ton of other relationships in this story. So like Ismay has a growing relationship with the Duchess that's like in charge of this duchy thing at the court she goes to, and I really enjoyed that story. Good lady friendships are always a good thing. Although I could have used a few more lady friendships. I think the thing that's upsetting is there's definitely the potential for more. And hopefully that will be explored more as the series progresses. So finally, would I recommend this story? And I would say yes, or this book. Yes, I would. I think if you like fantasy or historical fiction, you would enjoy it. The romance isn't too overpowering, so if that's something you're not like super into, I think you would still enjoy this, especially since, like I said before, I think the romance adds like depth to Ismay's character instead of it just being a romance for the sake of a romance. Overall, I really enjoyed it. Obviously, I gave it 4 stars. I'm very excited to read the second book. I've already gotten it out of the library because the character in that one really intrigues me, and I'm guessing all 3 stories are going to have romances in them, and I think I know who she's going to end up with, and very interested in this. Like, it's not often I read YA books that have like sequel bait, and I feel like this was some serious sequel bait. So I'm very excited to read that, and thank you so much for watching this review. Bye!